Former President John Quincy Adams had a lot going for him. He spoke 7 languages, served on the Supreme Court after being president, and his IQ has been estimated at 175, even higher than Einstein's. So it might surprise you to hear he funded one of the strangest missions in American history.
It's the 1820s. We're in Washington, D.C., and President John Quincy Adams is ready to approve a pretty shocking expedition. Is it a new passageway west for expansion? No. Is it to explore new trade routes through South or Central America? Not even close. Quincy Adams is being asked to fund an expedition to send search parties deep beneath the Earth's surface, hoping to discover subterranean worlds and conduct trade with a race of people who maybe live there. According to some, Quincy Adams is a believer in what's called the hollow Earth theory.
The idea that the Earth may be hollow and hide hidden worlds is actually a theory that goes back all the way to the ancient Greeks. But in the 1700s and in the 1800s is when it really picks up steam in Europe and the Americas. There's one man in particular, a guy by the name of John Cleves Sims, who in 1818 writes a piece known as Circular Number 1.
Sims postulates that there's 2 pathways to the hollow center of the Earth, one on the North Pole and one on the South Pole. And that if we dig deep enough, we can find those pathways and get to this new world.
Sims is ready to make this happen, and so he calls out for 100 brave souls to help him dig into the Earth and to try to find these hidden worlds that lie just beneath our feet.
As an enticement, he tells these would-be volunteers they're gonna find worlds full of men, full of riches, and full of this great phrase, thrifty vegetables. I guess this is what a world looks like before the discovery of gold. That the chance for riches comes in the form of thrifty vegetables.
Now, most people would obviously think that an idea like this is crazy, but it's not that far-fetched to the President of the United States.
There's some debate about whether Adams was all in on the hollow Earth theory, or if he just wanted to do some exploration of the North and South Poles.
Sadly for Sims and Quincy Adams and the Mole people, Adams is voted out in favor of Andrew Jackson, who was far too busy with above-ground natives to bother with any subterranean natives. With government funding gone, Sims would die a few years later, never realizing his dream of meeting the Mole people and eating their thrifty vegetables.
Quincy Adams' Hollow Earth expedition might not be the most unbelievable expedition funded by a president. Imagine millions of military dollars spent on a voyage of the mind.
Conventional espionage is, although a very successful way of gathering intelligence about a potential foe, it's also very difficult. So during the decades of the Cold War, the government comes up with a plan. The U.S. military establishes Operation Stargate. And this is a program by which 10 or 15 men are trained at Fort Meade in Maryland in a psychological exercise that's called remote viewing.
What is remote viewing? Well, simply put, it is psychic spying. The principle of psychic spying is that people use the power of their mind to locate all the usual intelligence targets, missile silos, military bases, ballistic missile submarines, that sort of thing.
The advantage offered by remote viewing is that you get all of the successes associated with conventional espionage without taking on the hazards and the risks of sending somebody behind the lines of a potentially hostile country.
We know through declassified documents that the United States government is interested in phenomena like extrasensory perception since the 1950s. But it doesn't really take off until the late 60s and early 70s, where there's whispers that the Russians might also be dabbling in this psychic ability.
But does psychic spying actually work?
Turns out the results are way better than chance alone should allow. Some of the estimates about the success rate of this program put the figure at 70–80%.
From these experiments, the Army identifies 6, quote, star performers. One of these star performers is named Joseph McMoneagle.
During his remote viewing session, he begins to sketch out what he's seeing.
McMoneagle claims that he's capable of seeing deep into the Soviet Union, and he observes the construction of a large submarine. And what McMoneagle describes ends up being the Typhoon class of Soviet ballistic missile submarine, 6 months before their existence is made public.
But while McMoneagle is seen as a star performer, he's not even the best one of the group. That would be his colleague, Pat Price, who is deemed a psychic treasure. Pat Price is supposedly successful in being able to infiltrate an underground Soviet nuclear research site.
Price claims to remote view the development of a particle beam weapon that the Soviets are going to use to shoot down satellites.
Despite its promise, Operation Stargate never really takes off.
Eventually, the CIA decides that it's time to revisit remote viewing, and in 1995 decides it's time to scuttle the program.
But there's a suspicion that it's only in public that the plug has been pulled. Some people believe these programs continue to this day. There is a theory that this is a classic black op. It's still going on, but it's buried somewhere in the private sector, perhaps.
Brings a whole new meaning to the idea of working from home. Anybody who's ever taken a brutal red-eye next to a screaming infant knows traveling with babies is no picnic. But at the dawn of the 20th century, penny-pinching parents discovered a novel way to farm out sending your kids to grandma's, thanks to a bizarre loophole.
In 1913, the U.S. Postal Service starts accepting packages that weigh over 4 pounds. So naturally, people start testing the system. What can I mail now that there's no real weight limit?
People start shipping the most random things. Bricks, eggs, chickens, just to see if it could be done.
In January of that year, a family from Ohio named the Beegs decide to stick a 15-cent postage stamp on their son and mail him to his grandma about a mile away.
And here's the thing, it works. And so once it's found out that kids can be mailed, essentially, you start to see this very small uprising of parents just slapping stamps on their kids and mailing them.
Between 1913 and 1915, at least 7 other families mail their children. The longest was one girl was mailed from Florida to Virginia, 720 miles.
But this trend quickly gets stamped, return to sender.
The U.S. Postmaster General does not find this practice adorable, so he finally does what I think a lot of people didn't expect would be necessary, and he outlaws mailing your children in 1915.
Death Valley, California. Purgatory, Colorado. Devil's Pass, Alaska. Some far-flung locations carry names so ominous you'd never dare visit. But one remote valley in Canada boasts a title so terrifying, it's got them all beat. Not just because it's gruesome, but because it actually lives up to the hype of its name.
In the Nahanni National Park in northwest Canada, there's a 200-mile gorge referred to as the Valley of the Headless Men.
No picturesque metaphors here. The Valley of Headless Men earns its name, starting back in the early 1900s.
Most of us associate the gold rush with San Francisco or Deadwood. But by the late 19th, early 20th century, if you wanted to go prospecting in the wilderness, you had to work a little harder to find it.
People who had been in the gold rush in California start pouring into Canada.
They're going out into the vast reaches of the Canadian wilderness. There's no stores here, no hospitals. This is dangerous territory.
In 1904, 2 brothers, Willie and Frank McLeod, are among those looking for their fortune in the remote northern territories.
The McLeod brothers know they're going to be venturing out much further than other prospectors. So they stock up on supplies like flour, rifle cartridges, then they jump into their canoe and they paddle down the Nahanni River.
The conditions are extremely harsh. Grizzly bears and wolves, sub-zero temperatures even during the day. There's many dangers.
While camped out in the nether regions of the Canadian wilderness, the prospector's family doesn't expect regular communication. But when 2 years go by without any word, their loved ones fear the worst.
Willie and Frank's older brother, Charlie, pulls together a search party and goes looking for the men in their last known camping location. In 1908, he finds his brothers dead on the banks of the Nahanni River. They are fully clothed. A few personal effects are scattered around them, but what's truly strange is both bodies are missing their heads. Naturally, Charlie is convinced of foul play, but Canada's Royal Mounted Police are not so sure.
Canadian Mounted Police have a theory that, in fact, the brothers probably died of starvation, and then after the fact, scavenger animals came and removed the heads.
This story is full of holes, though. It's unlikely that both brothers would have starved to death at the same place and the same time.
And also, it just seems unlikely that if the bodies were found by wolves or grizzly bears, the animals would make off with just the heads of both bodies.
Another strange theory arises. It might have been a warning to other potential prospectors.
Throughout history, beheadings are very symbolic. Putting a severed head on a pike is a clear message to outlaws and intruders. So it's very unusual that in this case, the head is missing.
Could a local legend provide any insight?
The Dene people settled in the region 8,000 years ago, but they never put encampments or settlements in this particular valley. What do they fear?
Tribal folklore tells of a race of man-eating giants called the Nakani, which are said to be twice as tall as an ordinary man. They consume human flesh, so the lore goes, and they hunt in the valley.
Still, the case remains unsolved and appears to be an isolated incident. Until 1917.
A Swiss prospector named Martin Jorgensen appears to strike gold. He sends a letter back home to his family saying, "I found it, I'm rich."
But shortly after he sends this letter, he too is found dead next to his cabin, which has been burned to the ground. His body's found among the ashes. Once again, there's no head.
3 headless men found in the same remote place? A decade apart? Plenty to earn the nickname Valley of the Headless Men. Sadly, the mysterious headhunting isn't over.
Decades later, in 1945, there's a body found in a sleeping bag. And for the 4th time, there's no head. This is thought to be the body of a missing miner named Ernest Savard. Here's the strange thing. Gold mining has been going on in Canada for decades across vast regions. So it's unusual that it's only this one little tiny area that there are missing heads. Whether you believe these deaths are the result of some sort of legend or folklore, or maybe animal attacks or rival prospectors, simple fact is, they remain a mystery until today.
Not all mysterious locations have such colorful, macabre names. But there's one small body of water in central New Jersey that sounds adorable, Round Valley Reservoir. But its strange history is anything but.
If you look at other infamous locations like the Bermuda Triangle or the Dragon Sea, these are deep, expansive, natural locations with erratic weather. What's weird about Round Valley is that it's comparatively tiny and man-made.
For what it lacks in size, it more than makes up for in strange disappearances, earning the nickname the New Jersey Triangle.
The longest unsolved disappearance dates back to May 4th, 1973, when 2 men Thomas Trimblett and Christopher Zajackowski are fishing on the reservoir in a 12-foot aluminum boat.
A few days later, the boat is found capsized on the eastern shore of the reservoir. There's 2 life preservers, an oar, and a broken fishing rod, and no sign of bodies.
And this is just the first chapter in this very disturbing mystery.
A few years go by. It's now March of 1977, and Craig Steer and Andrew Fasanella are out on the reservoir enjoying themselves in their canoe, rowing.
They're last seen paddling their canoe on the north side, heading east.
And they just disappear.
Just like the previous incident, their canoe and camping gear is discovered on the shore a few days later. The authorities send divers in almost immediately. They search the area, and they find no bodies.
Andrew's father is determined to find his son's remains, and he appeals to the New Jersey State Police, and they have access to a privately owned submarine, and they bring that to the reservoir.
Unfortunately, they find no bodies. And this is a man-made reservoir. These are fairly calm conditions. You're not dealing with ocean squalls or massive waves or great white sharks.
Another decade goes by. We're now in 1989. John Kubu and Andrew Lawson, they take a fishing boat out onto the reservoir. They again go to the eastern side.
You can probably guess how this ends.
For our 3rd time now. All of their items are accounted for, their camping gear, you name it, but they're nowhere to be found. It's the same pattern again and again.
Conventional searches turn up no signs of any bodies that have gone missing over the past 15 years. But in 1993, some hungry fishermen catch something that finally sheds some light on this cold case.
It's the remains of Albert Lawson. The remains that a submarine could not find have been caught by a fisherman. John Kubu, his friend, still nowhere to be found.
This break leads to a full-scale search effort in 2006, when authorities take advantage of unusually low water levels.
A team of state police, FBI, and Bergen County Sheriff's officers fan out on foot and in boats all across the 180-foot deep reservoir. They even bring in another state-of-the-art submarine.
And yet with all this technology, all this attention, all these people focused on this objective, they find nothing.
6 years later, another unexpected clue surfaces.
In 2012, a fisherman's hook catches on something heavy that doesn't resist like a fish would. And he reels it in. There is a massive boot on the end of that line. He takes a closer look inside, and there is what looks like bones and decayed human flesh.
Unfortunately, due to the amount of time that the foot has spent underwater, authorities are unable to use it to determine any kind of connection to the missing bodies. As of today, the New Jersey Triangle has claimed 26 lives, and at least 6 bodies remain undiscovered.
As far as the mysterious foot, that might not belong to any of the Jersey Triangle's official victims. At just 50 to 100 miles from Newark or Atlantic City, a deep lake is a very convenient place to dump inconvenient people. That foot could be anybody's. When it comes to solving violent murder cases, detectives never know how they might catch a big break. For cold case cops in India, help comes from the most unlikely source.
It is December of 1983, near the city of Agra. The Singh family of Bod, India, welcomes a lovely boy into the world who they name Titu.
He's precocious, but one day he starts behaving strangely. He claims he has a beautiful wife named Uma and wealthy parents in the neighboring city of Agra, and he even owns a radio shop.
He further tells his family, "I'm not from here." His name is not Titu, but it is Sutesh Verma.
He also tells them something else quite shocking, that he was murdered.
At first, Titu's parents are dismissive. Our son just has an active imagination, like many children. But when they tell him to knock it off, he gets incensed. He's angry. He says these things happened to him.
He tells his mother that his wife, Uma, wears much nicer saris than she does. His home in Agra is bigger and cleaner and nicer, and by age 4, he's absolutely adamant that he comes from a better life and better circumstances.
In 1987, Titu's big brother Ashok decides to help out with a little recon.
He drives around town looking for this radio shop. He doesn't find a radio shop named Sutesh, but he does find one named Suresh. He goes inside, he goes up to the counter. There's a nice woman at the counter. She says Suresh isn't there because he died in August of 1983.
She also says that she's Suresh's widow, and her name is Uma.
He asks how Suresh died, and Uma tells him that he was murdered.
Ashok is surprised. The story's starting to line up. Ashok tells Uma about Titu's claims that he is her husband come back to life.
Intrigued, Uma travels to Bod with her in-laws to hear Titu's strange claims for herself.
Titu recognizes them immediately. He calls Uma by her first name, and he asks, why are they arriving in a car he doesn't recognize? What happened to my Fiat? Uma is shocked. How would he know that their car was a Fiat?
नाम क्या है?
सुरेश।
इसका फोटो है?
मेरा।
कब खिंचवाया था?
मेरा पास था, मैंने तो पहले खिंचवाया।
Titu doesn't just know intimate details of Uma's deceased husband's life, but also his unsolved death.
He remembers driving home, honking his car horn twice to have Uma come out and open the gate for him. And then he remembers this next part vividly. 2 men coming down the street. One takes a gun out and shoots him in the head.
Unbelievably, Titu's memory matches the police report. But he's also able to recall something that's evaded the authorities for over 5 years.
Titu claims to remember one of the assailants as someone who Suresh did business with at the radio shop, Siddiq Johadian.
There's also another strange piece of evidence uncovered.
On Titu's head, there is a birthmark on the right side and a scar on the left side. And both of these roughly correspond with the entrance and exit wounds as per Suresh's 1983 autopsy. With all this circumstantial evidence, the courts take extraordinary action. They allow reincarnation evidence into the docket and allow the police to reopen an investigation.
The police actually locate the 2 men that Titu remembers. They are charged with murder, found guilty, and sent to prison.
It's got to be tough enough for police to trust a reincarnated witness. Now imagine one that doesn't exist.
It is 1897 in the Allegheny Mountains of West Virginia. A blacksmith named Erasmus Shue, known as Trout, settles down with his bride, Zona.
It's a chilly January morning, and things are kind of slow at Trout's blacksmith shop. So he sends his assistant, Andy, back to the home he shares with Zona in order to find out if she needs any errands being run.
Andy knocks on the door, doesn't get an answer, so he carefully lets himself in, and what he finds is terrible.
Zona is at the bottom of the stairs, dead.
Andy desperately calls for Trout. And when he sees his wife's body, he is overcome with grief.
He is crying and wailing, and he sends Andy to go get the coroner, which is Dr. George Knapp.
Trout carries Zona up the stairs and is immediately just beside himself.
Knapp comes to the house with Andy. Trout is screaming hysterically, and Dr. Knapp can get nowhere near the poor girl's body.
Because of Trout's emotional state, Dr. Knapp does not examine the body. Instead, he determines the cause of death as an eternal faint, a euphemism at the time for a sudden heart failure.
There's a tradition within the community that the women of the town would come and prepare a woman's body for burial by cleaning it and dressing it. But when the women of the town arrive, Trout has already done this. She's wearing a crisp, high-collar dress with a large crepe veil, and he's even wrapped her favorite scarf around her neck.
Trout puts Zona's body in a pine box, and she's buried the next day in the local churchyard with all the townfolk present.
Weeks pass, and then one night, Zona's mother, Mary Jane Hester, is sleeping in her bedroom when, out of nowhere, she sees her dead daughter, Zona, and Zona points at her own throat as if to tell her mother something.
She kind of chalks this up to, I am a grieving mother, my brain is playing tricks on me, but then the next night the same thing happens again. It happens a third night, and then a fourth night. After this, Mary Jane is convinced they need to look into this death, and she actually gets in touch with Dr. Knapp and says, I think we need to exhume my daughter's body.
When Trout gets wind of this, he is incensed, arguing that he does not want his wife's body to be disturbed.
Despite Trout's protests, Zona's body is dug up, and when they remove the scarf Trout placed around her neck, a brutal truth reveals itself.
They find markings of strangulation. Of course, with murder charges, they always look at the spouse first, and Trout's actions were considered suspect. His carrying on and crying, keeping the doctor from examining the body, point to someone who's trying to conceal evidence.
Trout is immediately arrested, and he's put on trial for the murder of his wife, Zona Shue.
In court, Trout's attorney attempts to make Zona's mother seem crazy for suggesting that her daughter had come to her in an apparition. But the problem is, the forensics back up her story.
The jury sides with Zona's mother, and I suppose by extension, Zona's ghost. They find Trout guilty and sentence him to life in prison, but they also set a very unusual legal precedent.
Zona Shue's case is the only time in recorded history of the state that a ghost actually provided testimony that resulted in the conviction of their killer.